After backing President Zelensky with endless accolades for the last 5 months, Western politicians and media are suddenly speaking out about Ukraine's internal corruption, nepotism, and instability that seem to have long plagued Kiev. This comes after the Ukrainian president's firing of several officials, including his once close friends, Prosecutor General Irina Venediktova and the head of Security Service, Ivan Bakanov. It's a delicate situation for U.S. officials as they've continuously defended and given Ukraine billions of dollars. But Zelensky's latest actions are being viewed by some as authoritarian, while the Americans want to avoid backlash that could make it more difficult for them to pass more aid for Kiev. The situation also seems to discredit the popular Western fantasy that Ukraine is this democratic, free country, highlighting corruption and internal division as a very real and present issue.
Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky's dismissal of senior officials is casting an inconvenient light on an issue that the Biden administration has largely ignored since the outbreak of war with Russia: Ukraine's history of rampant corruption and shaky governance.
A Western official close to Zelensky's administration expressed concern to Politico that the move appeared to go in the opposite direction of the EU's request for Kyiv to crack down on corruption and increase the independence of its law enforcement agencies if it wants to become a member of the bloc.
It looks like Zelensky is firing people without any real evidence, which screams of a power trip. Let's not forget that he basically shut down every single oppositional political party in Ukraine, signing a decree outlawing groups deemed to be pro-Russian. He also merged all the media into one huge propaganda channel. It all sounds like the very authoritarianism the West accuses Russia of, so much so that even the media has noticed.
The presence of close friends and allies of Zelensky at the top of the Kyiv regime would indicate definitely quite a corrupt nature to the governance of the country. And it shouldn't come as any great surprise that people who are not necessarily competent for the roles that they are in find themselves in these offices. What matters is loyalty. It can be understood in private when the media and politicians in the West discuss Ukraine that this is deeply embarrassing, and that may be discussed, in fact, will be discussed in private. But the glorification of Ukraine as an instrument of the West has to continue.
The current situation also raises the question of how Zelensky's close friends got those high-ranking jobs to begin with. Many felt Bakanov, with no law enforcement experience, was unqualified for the job and too close to Zelensky to be given such a powerful position. But Ukraine's president staffed his cabinet and heads of top agencies with those closest to him.
Imagine President Biden appointed a friend from Delaware as head of the CIA who had no experience in intelligence. It's not very surprising that these people haven't performed well.
But this shouldn't be surprising. Last year, Ukraine ranked 122nd out of 180 in the corruption index. And before Russia's military operation began, the media was happy to report on this. In fact, Ukraine's corruption problem was one of the reasons the country was not allowed into NATO earlier. Of course, on the 24th of February, Ukraine suddenly became a beacon of democracy. Inexperienced officials put in by their powerful friend in an already corrupt system doesn't exactly make a winning combination needed to fix it.
There seems to be a consolidation of power around Zelensky. What I think also this points to is a growing weakness of the regime. Wartime is a time of great possibility for any country, that the normal rules are in effect suspended. This is a gift to any government or any regime that feels that it needs to achieve certain outcomes. In peacetime, it's more difficult to do this because authoritarian behaviour is exposed. It's the usual run of journalism will hold it to task and question it. But in a war situation, we get to see the media rally behind the administration. The external and internal friends of the Ukrainian regime rally behind Zelensky, and of course he can do no wrong. So when he does do something wrong, that can't be emphasized in any great way.
It's almost as if all the idealistic pictures of Ukraine that the media has been peddling all these months were a lie. Ukraine is in chaos, and Zelensky's actions pose him as a leader who is doing the opposite of cracking down on corruption. Meanwhile, some may remain shocked. What cannot be denied much longer are Ukraine's turbulent problems.